Two.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isabela Greiner,
And I'm Jerome Foronda.
and today we're going to be presenting Project One, which will be a submarine. So let's get into it. Let's first start with, of course, a problem statement. Design and create a simple propeller for a submarine model. The goal is to develop an easily constructible propeller via CAD and an animation software on Onshape. The design must have a focus on visual appeal and functionality as a possible toy for children. So let's get into how we did the research for this. Jerome and I decided we wanted to go with a bit more of a toy-like submarine rather than a realistic one. Upon researching, we found that most toy, chibi-looking submarines tend to have three windows, a periscope at the top, and an overall stubby, chunkier design. As you'll see, this will come through in our initial sketching phase. Here you could see we decided we wanted to break up the submarine into simple shapes first. So we try to understand that there would be possibly cylinders, hemispheres, pyramids, trapezoids, rectangles, all basic geometric shapes to help us understand and build the overall shape for our submarine. This, of course, in turn evolved and became what will now be our ideation sketch. In our ideation sketch, we first decided we wanted the dimensioning to be in centimeters rather than inches. This is so that the submarine was still within the confines of the paper, but when transferred into our sketch on Onshape, we could trace over it and it'd be a lot easier to manage than if it were in inches. As you can see, we of course kept with the idea of having three windows, a periscope, a hooded top, and a propeller. We broke down the shapes easily again into rectangles, trapezoids, circles for the front, the back, and the windows, and of course, breaking up the periscope and having multi-views. Most important of all, we had to incorporate our propeller and understand how the dimensions would work in terms of the overall shape of our submarine. Now we divided up our work. So for me, I did a bit of research. I did the sketching, designing, and dimensioning for those initial sketches and our ideation sketch. And of course, in CAD, I did the submarine body, the submarine hood, and the periscope.
For my work, I did some part of the research as well. And then I did the multi-view drawings that you're going to see in the rest of the presentation. I also did the propeller animation. And for my parts, I did the propeller, the window frames, and the glass of the windows and the periscope.
As you can see, here is our final completed CADed drawing. So we kept true to our original sketch by having our three windows, the periscope, the hooded top, and of course the all-important propeller. Keeping up with that toy-like aspect, we've kept everything very chunky, chibi, and very cutesy looking in a way. But now let's move into how we built each of our individual parts. Of course, we start with the body. The body was very simple at first. We started, of course, by sketching and transferring that initial ideation sketch into Onshape and tracing over those simple 2D geometric shapes. Then, using only the half top of it, so that way we could use the revolving tool later, but I used 3-point arcs to connect those front end and back end of the submarine circles to make everything very smooth for this non-conventional geometric shape. I then took that initial top part and revolved it around the center axis. So that way, when it went all the way around, you have the unconventional but still very soft, curved body of the submarine you see before you. Next, of course, is the hood. The hood was probably the easiest part of the submarine to build. I just used my initial ideation sketch, traced over what my idea was, and used 3-point arcs, just as before, to create those soft curves. And as you can see that line, I used symmetry to reflect and easily make that other side of the hood just as smooth and equal in size. Once again, I utilized the revolving tool and revolved around the center axis to create the bulbous shape you see before you. Finally, we move into the periscope. The periscope was probably the most challenging for me, as it being a newer Onshape user, I wasn't as used to working with these dimensions. But once again, I broke it into simple shapes. Of course, I worked with the initial sketch that I had and the initial dimensions I was using and tried to understand how I could possibly break this up and understand to make that curved straw-like top part, which we'll see now in the challenges I faced. First, let's start with spline lines. Initially, I was going to use spline lines to make those soft curves of our submarine body, but I quickly learned that spline lines require you to go from your point of origin all the way around and back to it. And if I did this, I'd have to cut a lot of unnecessary pieces that I would no longer need. And of course, those had constraints on them, and it required me to once again have a bunch of red lines all over the screen. It is then that I learned that I can use the 3-point arc. So, using my back and my front circle and my main rectangle in my initial sketch, I use the 3-point arc to connect and make tangent to those circles in the corners of the rectangle to create those nice smooth curves. Next was the periscope. Again, being a newer Onshape user, I wasn't as used to doing these sorts of things, but then I realized that the periscope just kind of looks like a chunky, rounded Allen key that has a rounded surface instead of a hexagonal surface. So I went onto YouTube, searched up how people made Allen keys in Onshape, and used the method of creating a curved path, a straw curved path, of course, and then creating a face on a different plane on which to sweep it across that path and create the periscope you see before you. As you'll see later, Jerome ended up deciding, and I think very awesomely making, the window aspect of the periscope. But now let's go into what his parts were like.
So for my parts, I had the opportunity to create the window frame. So what I did, I created a circle, a ring actually, and then extruded it so both sides of the submarine can have a window. And then I copy and pasted it, spaced out the spaces equally, and I had three windows. And when I was making these window frames, I was like, they should have pieces of glass. I did a project in high school where I did windows and I included pieces of glass. So I decided why not use this or that idea into this project. So I created another cylinder. This time they're pieces of glass. Copy and pasted it 2 times and spaced them out evenly. And these cylinders, these glass cylinders are smaller than the window frames that you saw on the last slide, just to replicate that real life look. And then when I was making the glass cylinders for the window frames, I decided why not make a piece of glass for the periscope, just giving that periscope a camera looking aspect to it. So yeah, the next part I did was the propeller. The propeller was the hardest part of this project. Other than the multi-view drawings, which were pretty easy, the propeller was very time consuming. Um, it took me multiple methods how to make the wings, and I will discuss that in challenges. So for the challenges in my propeller, I used the Helix tool. The Helix tool was in one of the YouTube videos that was posted in the map in the modules. The Helix tool was cool, but it involved a whole line going down the the side of the cylinder, and when I um, use the tool in the video, um, the wings came out to be on the whole cylinder, and I didn't like that. I wanted the wings to be on one specific portion, so I had to solve that solution by using the wrap function. I used the wrap function. I created a sketch, and that sketch had a lot of blue lines, which did not allow me to use the wrap function correctly. So I just spent a couple 15 minutes just dimensioning those blue lines and the black lines, and I was able to use the wrap function. To make the wings, I use a circular pattern throughout the cylinder, and that included, or that gave me 4 more wings to put. And then another challenge was the Revolute Mate. The Revolute Mate was kind of tough for me to use because I couldn't figure out how to make the two parts together, the two parts being the submarine body and the propeller. So what I had to do was I had to cut a hole through the submarine body, and I was able to use the axes of the hole and axes of the propeller, the side of the propeller, to use Revolute Mate. and I was able to use the Revolute Mate to make the animation that we're gonna see right now. So yeah, as you can see, the Revolute Mate is playing. Let me play it right now, and the propeller is moving around. And yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much, Jerome, for being my partner. This was very fun, and thank you to Professor Sukumar for assigning this project to be partnered project.
yeah. Thank you, Isabella, for being my partner, and thank you, Professor Sukumar, for this project.
Okay, hope everyone has a good one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.